Hi, everybody. So today is, I think, my last of these end of the year videos that I've been doing, and they've been a lot of fun. So make sure you check out my best and worst and most anticipated, and just lots of fun videos. But today we're talking about my surprising and disappointing movies of 2024, and I got a lot to talk about. So let's dive in. Let's talk about it. So let's talk about surprising. Let's be positive first. And the first one that I wanted to talk about is I'm such a knucklehead because I didn't include The Day the Earth Blew Up, the Looney Tunes movie, in my best of 2024 because most people aren't getting a chance to see it. I don't feel like it really got a release, but then stupid me forgot to include it in my most anticipated because I already seen it. So let's just put it in surprising. But I really enjoyed this film. I thought it was really funny. I thought it had all of the Looney Tunes shenanigans that you could want. I thought the animation was really good. The only thing you might complain about is that it doesn't have all of your characters that you could want. Like there's really no bugs. There's no it's mostly spent with Porky and Daffy. So if you're hoping for like all of the Looney Tunes characters, you might be disappointed. But I really enjoyed this. I think it's the best, maybe the best Looney Tunes movie that we have ever gotten as far as a feature. So yay. I hope that it's a big hit. Then some other films that were better than I expected. So surprising, Inside Out 2. I didn't think the marketing looked very good. I was very nervous about the concept. It felt a little redundant. Having anxiety when you already have fear, when you already have disgust. What's it going to add? But they pulled it off. They managed to make it heartfelt and sincere and moving, and it worked, I think, pretty well. Another one that was better than I expected was The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. This was very true to the book. They didn't modernize it or make it overly dogmatic or preachy. It was a wonderful story that gets to the heart of really what Christmas is all about for Christians, but in a very accessible way. I really loved the cast. I got a chance to interview Dallas Jenkins, the director, over at Hallmark's podcast. You definitely want to check that out. I really thought it was well done. Also, I think Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul was really funny and in a very, very effective Wallace and Gromit movie. I loved the animation, of course, from Aardman. And I was nervous because I thought that, oh, is this going to be like the Chicken Run movie, which was disappointing? It wasn't terrible, but it was disappointing. This was, I think, as good as Where Rabbit, if not better. So that's pretty cool. Also, I think Beetlejuice was a pretty entertaining legacy sequel for this kind of thing. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than I expected. Also, of course, The Wild Robot. And I was just so impressed with how grown up it was. There wasn't any of that like DreamWorks sidekick modern humor. It was really a movie that was for adults, but there was no attempt to pander to kids. But it was just very heartfelt about parenting. And of course beautifully animated. So I loved that. I was very surprised by a lot of horror movies this year. I kind of tried to expand my palette. But The Substance, Nosferatu, Smile 2, I saw the TV Glow, Strange Darling, Your Monster, all movies that I enjoyed, as well as, just some other ones. You could even classify Beetlejuice in that kind of horror camp. So it was a good year for me as far as horror films, unexpectedly so. Another movie I liked way more than most, it seems like, was Arthur the King. I was so invested in the journey of this dog, and they emotionally manipulated successfully for me. I was really invested, and there was a scene on a zip line that I thought was extremely well done and extremely tense. Another surprise was A Real Pain. I did not like Jesse Eisenberg's previous film. And so the fact that this was so good, so entertaining, so funny, so easy to relate to. If you're somebody that was close to your grandma, like I was, close to your cousins, that dynamic, and just the just how natural and authentic it felt. I think it was very good. A couple other smaller romances that you might not have seen or heard of. There was a little movie called Return to Sender that was on the Up channel that was so well done. It manages to tell multiple stories. They find this, this woman moves into this building and she finds this old love letter and they start to look into it. And there's multiple love stories. There's these two podcasters that, like, should they go into switch to friends to lovers? What's going to happen? That was so good. I loved this movie, and I wish that it hadn't got kind of lost in the Christmas shuffle. Then Girl Haunts Boy on Netflix. I really, really loved this too. Girl, she ends up like haunting this boy, like the title suggests, and they become friends. And it's really more of a friendship story than it is a romantic story and a coming of age story. And I got to interview the writing team behind it, and that was and the director, and that was really fun over at Hallmarkies podcast. So that's one I recommend. I also recommend the little movie Touch. This is an Icelandic film. This was in my top 10 of the year. A beautiful romance that's jewel time. And it also captures the pandemic better than almost any movie I've ever seen. The older part is happening in March of 2020, and then he's trying to find his lost love. And so you see flashbacks to him and him falling in love with this woman in London in the 60s, and then him going back to try to find her. Really, really well done. Loved that. I also loved Musica. That's another great romance from 2024. And it captures Rudy Mancuso, his synesthesia, where he hears every little tick, he hears every beat, and it creates this incredible music. And just the way all the musical sequences were put together, so satisfying, so much fun. I loved it. Another one that I liked a lot more than most was Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot, and this movie about this whole town, this congregation, but really a whole town that decides to take in all the foster kids in their whole area by the end of it. And I thought it was pretty authentic and raw and moving, and I very well acted. So I really enjoyed that movie. So yeah, that's some of the surprises of the year. So many disappointments. uh, let's go. So Wolves, I thought was just incredibly disappointing. And I thought the trailers made it look really fun, but it was just an exposition dump. It was charmless. The plot was uninteresting. They ended up actually not really even having that great of chemistry. It was just so bland. That was disappointing. The Fall Guy was a huge letdown. I loved the trailers, and I just couldn't believe that the movie decided to separate them for most of the movie. You missed out on all of their chemistry and all their dynamic and the romance of it all. And instead, it was just these empty action set pieces that meant nothing. I didn't care about them. They weren't like I wasn't invested in the characters. So these action set pieces were just like a chance for the director to show off that he's great at stunts. Like, that's not interesting to me. I didn't care about that. And the Fall Guy was such a letdown. Godzilla X Kong, after how good the Godzilla -1 was, this was a big letdown. It was, especially once they got to the whole part on Skull Island, was so boring. You don't have Godzilla for 45 minutes of your movie. Like, what are you doing? Venom 3 was so disappointing. Venom: The Last Dance. They want to make it like all about this great attachment that we have for this franchise, when I just liked it because it made me laugh. Like, the buddy element of this franchise. And it was crazy to me that they expect us to feel all sentimental with montages and stuff, and yet you take our characters away from everything that we're supposed to feel sentimental about, and have him he's doing a road trip with this family. Like, that was so weird. It was so boring. They took themselves seriously, which was a huge mistake, because the whole appeal was that it was a fun franchise, a buddy comedy element to me. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire was so boring, and everybody gets to be a Ghostbuster. It's just like, what are they doing? It certainly wasn't funny, and just too many characters, a mess. Furiosa, I thought was kind of a slog. It they had some cool action, but pretty much everything in it was just a reminder that I'd rather be watching Fury Road than watching this. It just it didn't do it for me. That's for sure. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Oh my gosh, what a slog I thought this was. Everything was so obvious and so plotting, and I didn't care about the characters. And just like this whole sort of fascist character was so just by the numbers. I've seen this so many times before. I just really didn't like it. Twisters, you have to believe these people are so stupid that it just lost me after a while. And the fact that they took away the kiss really ticked me off. Fly Me to the Moon, I did recommend. I enjoyed it enough, but I wish it had leaned more into the rom-com elements, and then I think it would have been more memorable if it had. Instead, it was a lot of work, a lot of business, back and forth, as opposed to really being a true rom-com. Uh, there were a lot of musicals that disappointed me, and I thought I was like super easy to please when it comes to musicals. But Joker Folie à Deux, why did they have him sing like that? I have no idea. We know that Joaquin can sing. He was in Walk the Line. He sung well in that. Why did he sing this way? It's fantasy. They could make it sound however they wanted. What? eh, that would have gone so much to me enjoying the movie more, but they just made the musical sequences unpleasant, and the way that they treated the original film was so strange, and just the whole movie was bizarre, and I don't know, not really in an effective way. Emilio Perez, just what a mess of a movie. It combined so many different aspects and not well. Moana 2 was so bland, full of remember berries to the previous film, and just it's instantly forgettable. Spellbound, what a disappointment. I thought that this could be really fun with the team they had behind it, especially Alan Menken doing the music, and it there was almost nothing that was memorable about this movie. And Skydance, if they want to be a player, they need to do better than their last two films. These have not been good enough. The end was it it was just so bland, even though it has all these songs and about the end of the world and stuff, but they were all just sounded the same, and it wasn't engaging or enjoyable. Other movies that I was disappointed by: Red One, how bad it looked, the lack of charm and any sort of engagement. It was just so bland. And then the Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim, that was so disappointing. I was really hoping that it would be kind of a bridge in between anime and Lord of the Rings fans and kind of introduce people to anime, but it really was just a generic high fantasy anime with a couple mentions of Lord of the Rings thrown in there. So that was disappointing. And then a couple of Oscar baiting movies that I found kind of disappointing. I found Conclave to be disappointing. I don't really get the hype. I didn't get to know any of the characters, so why do I care which one they pick? Why is it thrilling to people? I don't understand. Because like it's well made, well acted, but I didn't get to know anybody. Why would I care if he picks this person or this person or this person? Because what? Like we spent so little. I don't know. I'm baffled a little bit by that one. Anora, I definitely did not like as much as everybody, and everybody seems to be saying that like it's a hilarious comedy. I don't really understand that. Like I thought it was kind of sad. It's okay, I guess, but I found the ending to be confusing. Like, what are they trying to? What are they going after? And it had definitely been sold for me as this sort of like Pretty Woman for now, and just because they have the same job doesn't make the movies the same. Like they're totally different. So yeah, I don't quite get it. And then Night Bitch. I think if you are a stay-at-home mom that's struggling, you'll really feel seen by this movie. But to me, I felt like it was a little basic. Like it's insight as far as like being a mom is hard. Like, it didn't have much beyond that as far as the character and the story and everything. And there's a point there where it's like, yeah, we all know that. And so what else do you have? What do you have to tell me about? And it was just so uncomfortable. And then I was just like, oh, I was, joking that they could use it as birth control, this movie. You never want to have a child if you watch this movie. So I guess there's that. I don't know. But I was hoping that it would have a little bit more going for it than just that message. So, we'll see. So yeah, that's the way it turned out. So those are some of the movies that disappointed me in 2024 and some that surprised me. Hi everybody. So it's a lot of fun. We are coming to the end of the year, to New Year's, and so it's time to do a bunch of end of the year videos. And today we are talking about my worst of the year movies. I saw almost 200 feature films this year. I saw a lot more if you're including TV movies. And there's a lot of underwhelming films. I think I'm going to do a whole video on disappointing films versus just bad ones like that we had here. And it's just my opinion of what I thought was bad. And I did not see everything. I didn't see Craven the Hunter. I didn't see the Rebel Moon Part 2, which I know a lot of people have on their lists. I didn't see pretty much all the like bad horror movies that people, warned me against. So this is just my list, and it's all in fun. And there's things I make that people think are bad, and this is just what I think some other people made that's bad. It's all good. We're fine. So let's do it. So number 12, I have It Ends With Us. I really disliked this movie. I really disliked the book, so it wasn't really made for me. Fair enough. But I just felt like all the men are this is a romance where basically all the men are scum. They're all not to be trusted. Her dad, her husband, the boyfriend is like the childhood boyfriend is like slightly better, but still kind of clingy and possessive. And so, the big thing is, oh, it ends with us, and so it's just her and her daughter against the world. And I don't really think that's that great of a message. I think there's a lot of good men out there. We don't need to be playing that game of we can empower women by demeaning men. I'm not a fan of that. I just didn't like the movie, and I didn't like the way the movie kind of tried to trick us. It had an unreliable narrator, and so all these scenes that were seen as like rom-com scenes were actually not in reality, when they showed like what really happened and how foolish of you to believe in the rom-com scene when it was actually like an abusive scene in the reality. I didn't like any of that. It was not for me. That is number 12. Number 11, I have Red One. This movie looked like trash. And the thing that was supposedly impressive about the movie was these action sequences, and they looked so bad that it just made the movie kind of boring. And I was just not interested in the story. It just wasn't funny enough to me. It just felt very long, and it just looked terrible. So it was a big disappointment. Okay, number 10, I have Wolves. What a disappointment this movie was with George Clooney and Brad Pitt. Talk about a nothing burger of a movie. No wonder it just basically went straight to Apple. This movie was so lame, exposition heavy. I didn't like the characters. I didn't care. It was such a nothing movie. And it had all the potential. It looked charming. It looked funny. And it just the script was not there at all, and it just felt like everybody collecting their paycheck and not caring to make this an actually entertaining film. Number 9, I have Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Oh my gosh, what a slog this thing was. And the by the end it was like, well, we just got to make everybody a Ghostbuster. Everybody has a proton pack. Everybody gets to be, it was just like, I just felt like it was slow, and I wasn't invested in the characters, and it wasn't funny. And I was just like, why did they make this movie? I really didn't care for it. Number 8, I have Back to Black. This, of course, is your Amy Winehouse biopic, but the whole movie was all focused on her relationship and not her music. And I I think there could be something interesting, I guess, in this relationship, but like I wanted to know about her music. Like what inspired her to write some of these iconic songs and what was her aside from just this drama of this relationship. It just was so lame. Number 7, I have Madam Web. I mean, this movie, it really did not feel like anybody was trying. The like even technical things like with Red One that you expect to be decent were terrible. Like the ADR was so bad, the villain was so bad, the story was so bad, and it you even have at the end you have the villain getting taken out by a Pepsi Cola sign. It's just like what? It was embarrassing, really, for all involved. Number 6, I have Harold and the Purple Crayon. This movie, it was charmless. It was bland. It had no it had no whimsy. It had nothing special to it. It was just people walking around and occasionally making things that were purple out of a crayon, but nothing that actually was like compelling as a story, as characters, as something that's enchanting. It was so bad. Number 5, I have Kinds of Kindness. I absolutely hated this. It was unbearable. All 3 of the stories somehow managed to involve cannibalism, and I didn't like any of the humor or the characters, the story, or it was painful. I hated it. Number 4, I have a faith-based film called The Carpenter. And I usually don't pick on like smaller films, and this was definitely a smaller film, but it was just so bizarre. You basically have like the assistant to Jesus that is also a UFC like fighter, and he's got his big fight, and they didn't have like any care about historical accuracy or like the things the female character Mary, things that she does with the other boxers and things. Like it was just nuts. It was crazy. Number 3, I have Dear Santa, and this is our movie where the little boy writes to Satan, and I just thought it was so odd and uncomfortable, the premise of the movie, to have this boy with Satan, with a devil. If you had it where it was an adult, then it might have been more palatable. But call me a prude, I didn't like the fact that this kid ends up selling his soul to the devil to keep his parents from getting divorced. Like that's just bizarre and not funny. It certainly wasn't funny enough to save it from this very uncomfortable premise. Number 2, I have Borderlands, and this movie had like no plot. It was characters without a plot. They literally were given the Kate Blanchett's character is given the assignment to find this girl. She's like a bounty hunter type, and they find her. Like the next scene, they find her, and then it's just like them ambling around. It's like they made it up every day. It was bizarre. It was bizarre, and it's just it was practically unwatchable in my opinion. The worst movie that I saw, and technically this was not released in theaters. This is a streaming movie, but it just really ticked me off. It's Megamind: The Doom Syndicate. I love the original Megamind. I think it's so funny, and I think it got kind of lost in Despicable Me and Despicable Me hype, because they're very similar stories. And I've always preferred Megamind of those original films, and waiting for a sequel, and for them to come out with this horrible sequel, horrible story. It wasn't funny. All the voice acting was terrible. It was trash, and it really made me mad and was frustrating, especially when you see how good DreamWorks sequels can be, that they came out with this. All right, friends, I forgot to include Megalopolis from Francis Ford Coppola. Okay, Megaflopolis, as it likes to be called. This thing was incomprehensible. It was so long. It was so boring. It seemed like it was trying to say a million things, but was saying nothing. It was so full of its own self-importance, and yet so incomprehensible that it just was maddening, and it looked horrible. May I respect that
tried to, that he sold his winery to pay for it and everything like that. But maybe this should have just been kept as like a family project and not inflicted on all of us, because it was truly, truly epically terrible. Can't believe I forgot about it.
Hi, everybody. So, welcome to Rachel's Reviews. And today we are talking about my top 15 favorite films from 2024. And this is always something I really look forward to doing. It's so hard, though, because I like different things for different reasons. So, compiling a list and ranking one over another. But basically, these are 15 movies that I really enjoyed. And I'm doing lots of other content. So, I'll go into more detail in those episodes. I did a best and worst episode with Conrado. We went into detail with that. And then I did a long episode with different superlatives and going into all of these for with the Female Film Critics panel with Molly and Manda. So there's all of that. Plus, you should check over Hallmarkies podcast. We're going to have a lot of best and worst over there for the Christmas movie season and the rom-coms and everything like that. So make sure you check that out. Well, at number 15, I have Molly and Max in the Future. This is a very small indie film that I saw at South by Southwest, not this year, but previous year. And I kept in touch with the director because I really enjoyed it. It's like this cool sci-fi take on When Harry Met Sally, and director Michael Litwack. And it's just amazing. Like him and his friend that got through the pandemic building models and making all the stuff for this movie, and how much of it was their ingenuity and their creativity and creating these whole worlds, and what they did on a nothing budget is just very inspiring. And I thought it was funny. I thought it had good romance. I really enjoyed it. At number 14, I have Heretic. This movie, it does kind of lose its way towards the end. It becomes more of a generic horror than it needed to be, but especially the first part, I really thought it did a good job of these sister missionaries. I was a sister missionary coming up against this guy who thinks that he's so smart and has all these arguments against their faith and against just faith in general, and that back and forth tit for tat between them. I really thought was good, and it was the movie after I saw it that I talked to my brother about it for like an hour, and I wanted to talk about. I did a whole episode with Rebecca of Female Film Critics panel, and I thought that was really good. And it was just the movie that I wanted to talk about the most from this year. Another one that I wanted to talk about a lot was I saw the TV Glow. And this movie doesn't like have enough plot. It's a little too ambling for some people. I totally get that. But I thought that its message about the way that media becomes literally a part of who we are and becomes part of our being, was the main message I took away from it. And how that, especially when it's something that you've grown up on, and then the experience of kind of transitioning away from that and how painful that can be, and just all those things. I thought it was a beautiful movie. I thought it was a thoughtful movie, personal movie, and of course it has themes about trans people and them not feeling at home in their bodies. All of that was interesting and well done. I enjoyed it. At number 12, I have Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. This is a documentary about Christopher Reeves, and it was really a documentary about their whole family and how they adapted and evolved and came together and changed. And it was just so moving and well done, well put together, and very personal. And I really appreciated that. At number 11, I have Chicken for Linda. This is a beautifully animated film about a mom who wants to make it up to her little girl for scolding her. And so she agrees to make her daughter's favorite chicken dish. And so they go around the city trying to find all the ingredients. It's so sweet. It's so funny. The animation's wonderful. It's a gem. Number 10, I have The Brutalist. This is just like such an epic, impressive achievement. It is kind of exhausting, but like I just watched it and just think like, how did this get made? It was so ambitious that it did kind of win me over. The acting is incredible. It's such a sweeping story. It was one of the most impressive films I've seen since There Will Be Blood, just in the scope and the cinematography and the performances and just everything else. Very impressive. At number 9, I have Wicked. I thought that they did a wonderful job bringing this musical to the screen. I still don't think it needed to be two movies, but I really liked the performances and the songs and the choreography. And I was invested in the story, and I'm excited to see where they take it from there. And I think it's the only movie that we'll see 3 times in theaters this year. Then I have Strange Darling. And this movie was so clever. It was so creative, the way that it was subversive about the final girl horror tropes. And what you think is at the beginning gets completely subverted by the end, and what you think you know about the characters gets completely subverted. I thought it was a really brilliant screenplay, very good performances. I just really enjoyed it. At number 7, I have The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. This is like a perfect adaptation of this book. It is so heartwarming, so sweet, such a good Christmas story, such a good story of faith, so well acted, but not preachy. I think that anybody could enjoy this movie if you're open to Christmas movies. It's excellent. Number 6, I have Touch. This is a beautiful film out of Iceland that tells a dual story of this man and his love when he was young with this woman in London. And he worked in her father's Japanese restaurant, and they fell in love. And now we are in March of the pandemic. And I can't think of any other movies that have really captured that pandemic experience, the lockdown experience. And he has only so much time, and he wants to find this woman again. And it was, I thought, very, very beautifully done movie in all regards, both young and old. Number 5, I have Hundreds of Beavers. This movie is insane. It's crazy, and all the better for it. The energy, the visual aesthetics, that they did on $150,000 budget, insane. The creativity, the laughs. It is a little too long, but that wasn't a deal breaker for me. I just really, really enjoyed it, and it was so much fun that it had to make my list. Number 4, I have Musica. I love this so much that I interviewed Rudy, and I interviewed Dallas Jenkins for Best Christmas Pageant Ever, but I interviewed Rudy Mancuso, who is a semi-autobiographical about this man with synesthesia, where he hears every tick, every sound, and it just becomes this music all around him. And I just absolutely loved it. The romance between him and Camila Mendes was like real in real life. They really fell in love, and so it's there on the screen. And I just really enjoyed it. And then 3, I have A Real Pain, and loved this script. It was so sharp, it was so well done. These two, it really felt like cousins. If you have cousins, I think you connect with this. And like, there were just so many funny scenes, but then also so many emotional scenes. It just felt really authentic to me, and very entertaining. At number 2, I have Ghostlight, and this is a real life family playing the mother, daughter, and father here in this. And this is a tribute to community theater and the power of just community to help us heal our wounds. And you have this man who's quite wounded from something that happens, and he's like made eye contact with Dolly De Leon, who is in this community theater group. He's this gruff construction worker. She sees him. They need help with their exercises and stuff going on. So she's like, hey, why don't you come and help us? And so then he ends up playing Romeo in Romeo and Juliet, which was just so sweet. And I loved it. And number 1 is The Wild Robot. I absolutely loved everything about this movie. I think it's as close to a perfect film as we got this year. Incredible animation, incredible vocal performances. Peter Nyong'o, so good. And I just loved the whole message that the power of nurturing another being is transformative by its very nature, and that even though this is a robot, it can't help but be changed from nurturing this little goose. And I loved how grown up it was. There weren't any like modern jokes or winks to the to entertain the adults or the kids. It was a pretty grown up movie, I think, and it was just so well done. And that is my number 1 movie of 2024. To talk about my most anticipated films of 2025. And of course, there will be a bunch of movies that I'm not aware of or aren't on my radar that end up being some of my favorites. That always happens. But as far as right now, Which ones am I most excited? I have 13 on my list. Okay, number 13, I have Tron Ares. And I really love the original Tron from the 80s. The Tron Legacy was more mixed, but it looked really cool, had a really cool score. So, there was definitely some interesting things about it. And as far as a Legacy sequel, the things that it tried to do, I actually think it did a lot better than similar type reboots. When you look at like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, or Terminator, or some of these other ones, like it's actually pretty good for that kind of bringing back the old school and characters and things like that. So this Tron Ares, it's directed by the same guy who did Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, which Jochen Roning. And that movie wasn't the best movie, but it was nuts and bold. And so I'm curious to see what he ends up doing with Tron Ares. And he also did Young Women at the Sea, which I really enjoyed. So there we go. Number 12, I have Bad Guys 2. Really enjoyed the first Bad Guys. I loved the action, the car chases. I loved the animation. The humor was pretty good. And this one, I think, could, in the grand tradition of DreamWorks, I think this could be even better. It seems like the story is going to be better, and the humor, and again the animation. I don't know. I'm really excited about it. I think it could be one of my favorites of the year, I think. So, we'll see if DreamWorks keeps on this trend of making some of my favorite movies of the year. Number 11, I have Fantastic Four First Steps. This is my most anticipated Marvel movie. I'm looking forward to the Captain America one, but I haven't been really impressed with the trailers yet. I'm very intrigued to see if we can finally get a good Fantastic Four movie. And I like the cast. And I think it just has sort of my vibes with this 1960s, 1950s kind of aesthetic that hopefully they'll have to it. And you have Matt Shakeman, who is the director, and he did WandaVision, and which I enjoyed. So I'm very, curious to see what ends up coming out with Fantastic Four. Number 10, I have Elio. This is from Pixar, and their originals have been hit and miss. I really loved Luca, but I'm mixed on Soul, and I didn't like Turning Red. So, it's been kind of up and down as far as originals in the last few years. But this, I think it looks pretty good. I liked the trailer. It's the idea of this kid kind of representing Earth, these aliens, and kind of, I think it has a lot of potential to be a very cute, sweet, fun movie. It's directed by the director of Burrow, which was a short that was really cute a couple of years ago, and then Dom She, who did Turning Red. We'll see if they're able to pull it off and it ends up being good. I like the fact that they took an additional year, to make it and make it better. So that's always a good sign. Number 9, I have Avatar Fire and Ash. So far, I've liked both of the Avatar movies. The second one I thought was better than the first one, just story wise, and I really liked the family theme and the immigrant theme, and it's just such a beautiful world to be in. And I'm curious what they're going to do next. Number 8, I have Karate Kid Legends. I think this looks really fun. You've got Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio and this new kid, and I think it looks cute. I think it looks like it could be a fun time. Number 7, I have Zootopia 2. I'm really hoping that they are not leaning as much into the allegory as they did with the first one. I hope that they just tell a good detective story, a good case, and we get that banter between Judy and Nick. I think it'd be real fun if it's like a buddy movie, and there's so much potential within that world that they only spent like a few seconds in the first one in some of these lands, and there's a lot of potential in there, and I hope it's funny, and so I'm excited with that. Number 6, I have Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Now, I am not like in love with this series. To me, it's for some reason a little bit forgettable, but I can't deny that every single one of them, in my opinion, has been watchable and entertaining. Especially the last like 3, 4 have just the stunts and the spectacle and everything have been so impressive. and entertaining, that that even though I'm not particularly attached to the characters or the story, it doesn't really matter. I still feel like this is going to be a good time. I'm going to enjoy it. I've enjoyed all of them so far, to different degrees. Number 5, I have Mickey 17, and this was actually on my most anticipated last year because it got bumped to this year. And I'm normally not the biggest sci-fi person, so I don't know if this would be as high on my list. Just if it was just nobody, but the fact Bong Joon-ho is the director, love Parasite. I've loved everything that he has directed, and so that's enough for me to get on board and be intrigued. I thought the trailer was pretty good. So I'm definitely curious to see what he gives us with Mickey 17. Next, I have Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy, and this is one of the only big budget rom-coms that has been announced for next year. And I'm, of course, really looking forward to it. I've liked all except for the second one of the Bridget Jones's movies. So I guess I like the first and the third of the Bridget Jones's movie. I don't like the second one, but you know, I like the character, and it's a fun cast. It seems like it's gonna be pretty dishy. I'm not sure how they're gonna bring back Hugh Grant because he died. So I guess those will be flashbacks, I guess. I don't know. But Emma Thompson, I think Colin Firth is just gonna be also flashbacks. Chiwetel Ejiofor, Isla Fisher. So it's a fun cast. So I'm, you know, looking forward to that. And I don't know if Red, White, and Royal Blue 2 will get a 2025 release. It hasn't been filmed yet. I know they're still working on it. So I just don't know. That it might be a quick turnaround. But if it does get released, then of course I'll be really intrigued and really excited and nervous about that. Next up for me is the new Superman movie. I loved the trailer. I thought that it was nostalgic, and I loved it seems like the portrayal of the character is going to be the hopeful character that we know and love from the Christopher Reeves and the comic books and other things like that. And I think they got a great cast, and I'm curious to see what James Gunn does with it. And so I'm very hopeful that it'll end up being good. Number 2, I have Paddington in Peru's Paddington 3. I've heard like maybe it's the weakest of the 3 because it would probably be my number 1 if I hadn't heard that. But I love the first 2 so much. Love the characters. And you know, I'm definitely just excited to get back in that world again, and to be on an adventure in Peru with the Paddington family. It doesn't have Sally Hawkins. She's not in this one, which is a bit of a bummer. But to have Hugh Bonneville, Tony Banderas, Olivia Colman, Julie Walters, great cast. I am definitely really, really looking forward to it. And then, of course, my number 1 most anticipated of 2025 is Wicked for Good. I still don't think they should have put it into 2 movies. I think it should have just been the 1 movie, but that's what they did. So I liked the first one enough that I'm definitely very intrigued to see how they're going to take the second act and turn it into a whole movie. I know they're going to add a bunch of stuff, which makes me nervous that it won't be good, but I hope that it will, because they've done a good job so far. So there's no reason to assume that it won't be good. But all the new stuff, and then working in with the, of course, second act of the musical. What are they going to do? Is it going to be disappointing because how much we enjoy the first one? I don't know, but definitely my most anticipated and excited. And you know, we'll see how it all turns out. But there we go. That's my most anticipated films of 2025. Let me know about you. What are you most looking forward to? I would love to hear in the comment section or on Twitter. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews all over the place. So make sure you check that out. And also check out the Hallmarkies podcast because I have lots of great content over there. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really, really helps me a lot. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. That's the biggest way you can help me. And I would just love to get past the 5,000 subscriber mark. I'm so close please take a look at that. And also check out the patron group. That's a great way that you can support the channel and get really cool perks. Like we have this Friday, we have our patron event for January, where actor Jesse Hutch, who is in feature films, he's in Homestead that came out this month, and as well as TV movies, other things. He's doing a Q&A for us, for the patrons, and that's any level patron can participate in these activities. And so it's just super cool if you want an inside look at what goes into making movies, and to have this cool group experience as part of the patron. Please, 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 please check that out. And then I have the merch store. We have tons of fun designs, including my Smile and Frown Worthy designs. They're in there, so check that out. And thanks so much, everybody. Happy New Year. We'll talk to you later. Bye.